My child is probably going to scream this whole freaking interview.
Oh, because you're going to say her name.
Yeah. I'm going to try to not say her name as much as possible.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. I am so excited.
Yay.
I'm so glad you're here.
So this is kind of going to be a funny interview because anytime I say your name, my daughter is going to lose her mind. Because she doesn't like when people say her name. So
my daughter will listen to me listening to Table for Five in the car, and she's like, "Hey, Elissa. Hey, Lexi. Are they talking about you?" I'm like, seems like that, doesn't it?
Hello and welcome to Table for Five with no reservations. Take a seat at the table for a fresh, sweet, salty, tart, and pleasantly bitter conversation.
Hello, welcome to the Table for Five. Thank you for taking a seat at our table. This series, we are talking about the teacher's perspective from the classroom. And tonight we have the wonderful Elissa McFarland, who is the author of Life with Lexi. And we actually were able to meet Elissa when we did the live podcast back in April. So this is exciting. At the table tonight, we have Jamie.
Hello.
Rachel.
Hey, everybody.
Tabitha.
Hello.
Jen.
Hi, everyone.
Alyssa.
Hello.
And I am Kim McIsaac. Alyssa, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of just tell us a little bit about like what you do, your family, all that good stuff?
Yeah, definitely. My name is Elissa McFarland, and I'm 36, married to an awesome husband, Brandon, and he's a software developer, and he's also a really, really awesome family man. Like, he's very, very hands-on with parenting, and we have two girls. My oldest is Alina.
Hey, Alina. I know she's going to be listening to this, so.
She is going to be listening in the car. She is 6 and getting ready to go into first grade, which even though that doesn't seem old to me, it seems so old. And she's just like a fun, loving, energetic little girl with an insane imagination. She can just create these amazing plots as she's playing. And then her younger sister is Lexi. She's going to be 4 in 2 weeks, which is wild to me. I feel like she is more like a 2-year-old, 2.5 maybe, but I also feel like she's been living with us for like 8 years. She's a handful, and she's also the inspiration behind my Facebook page, Life with Lexi. When she was 2 years and 1 month old, she was diagnosed with autism. And when we first got our diagnosis, I was ready for it. I knew it was coming. It wasn't a secret. I just wanted the official diagnosis before I just kind of dove in. And as soon as I got that official diagnosis, I was like, all right, let's go. I dove in head first. I got books, read books, started looking around on Facebook, found Kate, found all of you guys. And honestly, so in April, right after her diagnosis, which was in September, I was like, okay, it's Autism Awareness Acceptance Month. I'm going to write every day for the month of April. And at that time, I was getting such positive feedback from the things that I was just saying about our life with Lexi. And that's kind of how my page got born. And then that same April, I went to one of Kate's book signings in Ohio, and I met Sarah. She has a page too, Adventures with Harper Leanne. And Harper Elaine, sorry. And she was like, oh, have you heard about the Coop Troops Blog Squad? And I was like, no. And then I joined that, and it's been life-changing. I've met so many moms and made so many connections and met so many friends. So that's been honestly truly amazing. And I'm super, super thankful for it. As far as my professional career, I have been teaching now for 13 years, and it kind of started honestly like way back when I was younger. When I was in 3rd grade, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, and I had a really, really hard time in school. I was on an IEP. I received services, but I just did not do well. I didn't get good grades, and everything that was a reading assignment that was sent to us, whether it was a book or chapters for social studies or science, my mom read it all to me. She sat down every evening. She read me all of my assignments. She helped me make notes on, like, she would like outline everything for me. and she would quiz me. She knew I knew it, but at the time, my mom didn't know that you could have reading as an accommodation. So I'd go in to take the test and I would just bomb all of my tests. So school was hard. I didn't enjoy it. And then later on in high school, I was in counseling and got diagnosed with ADHD. And with ADHD and controlled medicines, you guys know because you're moms, there's so many doctor's visits. You're constantly at the doctor's getting refills. And one of those visits was honestly like a game-changing experience because my counselor knew that I wanted to be a teacher. And he said, well, have you ever considered being an intervention specialist and teaching children who think like you? It was just like a light bulb moment. I hadn't considered that. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I can do that. This is going to be fun. So from that point forward, I just set my goals to teaching intervention, and I love it. I teach children with mild to moderate disabilities. So I do a lot of polling for reading, writing, and math. And over my 13 years of teaching, I have had an increase in numbers for children with autism. It's insane how the numbers have just like gone up and up and up and up and up, and that's kind of how I've gotten to where I am now.
Can you explain what a developmental interventionist is? Like what?
So yes, so I'm an intervention specialist and I pull students out. And so there's a few different ways that it can be done. The current position that I am at, I work a lot with helping students with communication needs, though they do also have their speech pathologists. I help a lot with organization and transitions and helping create visual schedules for different things throughout the day, for different transitions throughout the day, whether they need to see what they need to do on how to organize their desk or putting up their backpack and the different steps that they need to take each morning. Get your folder out, put it in your desk, go get your breakfast, whatever it is for that student. And then I do a lot of the academics focusing on reading, writing, and math. And right now I do a lot of pullouts. So they'll come into my room and they will get their direct reading instruction in a small group that provides instruction on their level with lots of scaffolding. And then for math, I pull out. But with math, have you guys ever heard of touch math?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
think that's what Kaya might do. Touch math, touch. Or
I
maybe-
like it. I've seen the
Maybe it's jump. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I've seen the program, like there's like an actual program curriculum for it, but it's just like a strategy is like another accommodation that they can use. And I teach that to my students like the very first week of school, maybe the first two, I don't know. I guess I should figure that out because school's starting again soon. And once they have that in their toolbox, I'm able to kind of keep pace with the second grade curriculum. So when I pull them out for math and I'm doing the same thing that they would be doing in the classroom anyways, I get frustrated because it's like, oh, they could be in there. I could be in there with them. And at the previous school that I taught at, I actually was able to co-teach math with an amazing teacher. Her name's Catrice, and her and I had it felt like we were in like a working marriage. And we would plan together. I was a part of her classroom. She had desk in there for me. All of her students were my students. All of my students were her students. And they made the most amazing growth being able to be in there and co-teaching with them. But right now, I don't have that at the school I'm currently at, but I've mostly taught second grade, and it's frustrating because then you have to send them on to the next year. It's like, oh, I want a little more time with them. I want to be able to follow them to the next grade level. But this year, I'm also picking up kindergarten and first grade because the numbers are lower. And I'm really excited in getting to work with some other teachers and working with a younger group that I can follow through and maybe find a teacher who's interested in co-teaching, because I think that co-teaching is the most amazing thing ever.
That's awesome.
Do you think that with your profession, that's why you saw the signs of Lexi maybe a little sooner than maybe someone talking at this table, and I'm not naming names, it could have been me, that just ignored it all and pushed it to the back of my head? And
I think so. I mean, I think yes and no, because when I finally did realize, it was like a light bulb where I was just like, whoa, how did I not see this sooner? I wasn't sure if it was a hearing thing. I wasn't sure what it was, but she had regressed so much, and the regressions were big red flags. And I know, being in the field of education, how important the early intervention was. And so at that moment I just hopped on it. But when I went in to the doctor to talk to the doctor about Lexi, I had every single thing. It was like 3 pages front and back. I'm like, these are the language delays I'm seeing. These are the physical delays that I'm seeing. These are the sensory delays I'm seeing. Like, I had it all mapped out, and I was just like reading them down. She was like, go for it. You're clearly ready. And I just started reading all the different categories. And she's like, so what are you thinking? I was like, well, I think that she has autism. And she's like, all right, let's move forward. So she did not fight me on it. And I was very thankful. And I think that she knew, since I was an intervention specialist, I don't think that she was going to tell me no.
Yeah, because you know better than her, probably, really, you know.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I just needed someone to confirm it.
And did you have to wait a long time for like her like evaluation or?
So we live in a very, very small community. Rachel's laughing. Oh, we live in a very small community. So there were 2 cities. We could have either gone to Columbus, which is a bigger city, very populated. Morgantown's the other one. Big. It was a little bit further away. It's still a big city. But I was just like, get me into whatever's going to get me there first. And so Morgantown had a 3-month wait list. So I was like, all right, boom, done. Like, let's get moving. And then in the meantime, my doctor didn't deny me services for OT and speech and PT. So I got her into all of those right away and helped me grow right away.
That's great. That's awesome
that's
that you were
great.
like that and the doctor was receptive to that,
Yeah.
because I think like
I
it's
Yeah.
just go wrong somewhere. For me, it was like me being in denial, and also the doctor wasn't like helping. But for a lot
Yes.
of people, they'll go in and like, I think my kid's on, and they're like, let's wait and see. And so that's
Yeah,
really
that's
great.
exactly happened with us too.
And
That's
it's
true.
so not fair, because the parents need the guidance, especially at that early age.
Yeah.
Well, and
Well,
it's so hard because it's like if someone's like talking you out of what you're thinking and you don't want it to be true, it's so easy to be like,
No.
oh, okay. Yeah. Like, you know
That's
what I
what
mean?
was
Like,
with me.
they're right. Like, there are kids that talk later and, you know, whatever it is. So it's so easy to like fall into that like reassurance, even though like, even if in like your gut, you kind of, you're telling yourself something different. I think that, you know, I think that's a really hard part of it, because it's like, who doesn't want that reassurance? Because you don't want it to be true. You know what I mean? So like,
Yes.
And
Yes.
and here it's
3
hard.
months is
Here we
fast.
have
3
a
months is
2-year wait
fast.
list, a 2-year wait
Yeah.
list to get evaluated.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah, it's super fast, 3 months.
Yeah, I was honestly shocked that it was only 3 months, because at that point I was already like, I had dived in deep already, and I was hearing about wait lists and I was freaking out. Well, and another thing that I had done, because to me, even at the time, 3 months seemed like so far away. When we're in the middle of all of this regression, that I actually ended up doing Mary Barbera's courses. And that was very, very helpful as well in getting Lexi speaking again. So
And you're probably a good person to like do those. Like,
yeah, it was
because you have a background.
yeah, and I enjoyed it. Lexi enjoyed it. So yeah, it's just been a compilation of so much that we've done within the past couple of years.
Going back to what you're saying before about like wanting with your job and wanting to like follow kids. I really think that should be a next step in education, period. We're very fortunate at my son's school. He's in an autism program. So his autism teacher, unless she move, you know, there's always staffing changes and stuff that's going to happen. But for now, like she's like his go-to autism teacher. So he's going to change teachers every grade level, but he can fall back with her. And my son, I don't know about all autistic people, but my son really needs that, because it takes him like the first year to warm up to someone. And so,
Yes.
and for her to just know like, okay, this is where he was at. He's regressed. He's come back. He's in, because you can try to tell like the next teacher that, or the next intervention specialist that, and they're like, okay, but they're going off of their data and their charts. So I love that you want to do that, because it's really cool.
I agree with you. I mean, I really do think, and different teachers have different styles and programs. Well, usually within the school, there's similar programs. But if you're making such growth with a group of students, it's so hard to pass them on. And I'm very, very lucky because the third grade intervention specialist is phenomenal. So I feel like they're in such good hands with her. But at the same time, it's like, well, I don't care. I want you. Like and you get to know the families, and it's hard to move on after 1 year.
And the families probably trust you, which is nice too for the families.
Yes.
Yeah, and now you like have more of an understanding because of, Lexi. So like now it's like you're probably even more understanding because of her,
Yes. And man, it does make a big difference having a child who's going to be following the path in which you teach. Like it's just like you do get a different kind of a compassion and an understanding for it.
I wanted to ask about that. Did it we just interviewed another special education teacher, and she didn't have, her daughter's typical, but she said even having a child completely changed her perspective on like how she saw parents, and that it just made her more kind of forgiving in those ways. Did that happen with you and Lexi, or just in general having children?
So yes, and that's funny that you say that, because I can remember it was my first or second year teaching, and there was a teacher who was there. I got along great with her, but she had said, you don't truly become a great teacher until you're a mom. And I was so ticked at her for saying that. I was like, how dare you? And at this point, I'm like young, out of college, and I was just like, that's so insulting. And then years later, having kids, I'm like, I guess I kind of see what she means. Like you just have the different, yes, you just have a different perspective. You have a different understanding of what it's like to do homework at night and trying to get your kids to cooperate with mom versus cooperate with teacher. And there's just a different dynamic.
Although before you were probably better rested. So there's that.
Oh yeah.
But I think you probably give more grace knowing what it's like just to be a mom in general. Like, you have a more understanding of how, like, I run a daycare and I see it all the time, and then we have some teachers that are young and they're like, they couldn't another Lunchable or like whatever it is, you know what I mean? But it's like, they're not parents, so they don't fully, I'm like, well, don't ask me what I sent my kids Lunchables.
Yeah. Oh, Lexi tonight.
That actually fell out of their bag. Now give it back.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, for dinner tonight, Lexi had a yogurt and a sleeve of Ritz crackers. And
Same.
she said, yummy.
You do what
Go to
you
bed
do.
hungry.
Yeah,
Dinner.
you do
She
what
didn't
you
go to bed
do.
hungry.
I
Yeah.
need
So
that all
I'm
the
very
time.
jealous of her sleeve of Ritz
Me
crackers.
too. I
She'll
can-
even say whole sleeve of Ritz crackers.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh,
She's
so
the stuff
funny.
of heroes. I have to tell you, I'll tell our listeners, because you know this full well. Elissa and I have a special thing because we did a retreat in Wisconsin together, and it was fantastic. We share a t-shirt from her little tiny small town because it's so small, in fact, that the butcher is part of the market. And the butcher isn't just a butcher, but it's like a taxidermy style butcher. What's that thing called in the hunting area?
Yeah. Yes. And it's called custom killing. So
my shirt says custom killing family market. And when I saw her in it, I was like, I need that shirt. And also let's hug.
I wish our viewers could see Tabitha's face right now.
I mean, it's a whole thing.
Sounds like right out of a store in Montana. I feel
Right.
like.
Oh,
Exactly.
so here's like the topper of it too, is out front of the family market custom killing. They have a hearse.
What the
I
heck?
need that
I
shirt.
mean,
I need that shirt too, Alyssa.
I'm not kidding.
I
You should
told
get it in the
Adrian
same
I'd
blue.
send her one too. I just need to start sending everyone some family market custom killing shirts.
Well, so the second part of what Elissa and I talk about the most is that she once heard, I believe on the podcast,
It was.
that I used to 360, but really 375, because if you only butt the duct tape up to each other, the kid can peel off the duct tape, which is holding the diaper on, which is holding the poops in, which is a certain level of parenting, as we all know, this extreme parenting that we live. Well, so I had made the comment, like overlap, and Celia always had the most darling duct tape, and all of this stuff was in the episode. Well, like at 10:30 at night, one night, I get this message that's like, thank you, you're my hero. We are duct taping diapers at 375. And now I get pictures of all the darling duct tapes. It's just
Yes.
something, I'm sure that you were a very capable teacher prior to that moment, but there is this humbling that happens that helps you to understand all of the universe better when you're trying to keep the poops in the diapers and the kids in the clothes and
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness gracious. Until that works until she's potty trained, and then I'm screwed.
yeah. Don't do a potty chair in the closet. That was her dad's
No.
idea. So
I found her diaper in the closet the other day. It had the duct tape on it. I don't know how she got it off.
parenting.
Yep.
What type of program is Lexi in now?
So right now, Lexi is just in daycare. And I say just in daycare. Her teachers are amazing. They're super patient with her. And then she's still getting PT and OT at the facility. And then when she starts back in the spring, she's going to be in a preschool class. And Kim, I'm not sure if your preschool does this or not, but and it might not if it's a private, but it's a 50% gen ed and then 50% students on IEPs.
We do have that in the town, like not my daycare, but the public school does that.
Yeah, and this will
Yeah.
be through the public school. So I'm really excited for her to get that experience because in addition to her OT and speech each week, the speech pathologist goes into the classroom and does a center each day with the students. So that'll be like a little bit of extra speech. And I'm really excited for her to I feel like she's at this point where she's like ready to go and learn, and I'm nervous as all get out about it, but I'm also really excited for her.
Why does she have to wait till the spring?
Or I said I meant fall. I don't know why I said
okay.
spring.
Yeah, that makes
I
more
meant
sense.
fall.
So will she be
Sorry,
in the same?
it's late.
That's fine. Will she be in the same school as you, or
She will be. She will be. She's going to be across the hall from Alina.
Oh.
So I know they're going to be in the same hallway together. Alina's stoked about it though. Like she is like, I'll see Lexi. I can give her a high five. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
And she's going into first grade? Is that what you said?
Alina
Alina?
is, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be a lot of boundary testing for you.
Yes. It really will be. It really will be.
They'll be like, oh no, here she comes again.
I know, right? Yeah, that or she's like not going to notice that I'm there. Who knows? It's going to be one of the two.
That's good though, because I feel like that'll make you feel a lot better. Having her
Yes.
like where you are. That's
Yeah.
yeah. So you did mention in our notes that you want to talk about inclusion.
So one of the things with inclusion, the students that I have, I don't have the high educational needs students. So they're not in a self-contained classroom. It's more mainstreamed and it is more pull out, or hopefully someday I'll be able to do some more co-teaching and be in the classroom more. But something that I feel gen ed teachers really need to be aware of is making sure that the students who are on a roster for both gen ed and the special ed teacher, it's a joint effort. And both teachers need to be giving that same effort to the students. And that when someone else who doesn't know the class walks in, they see the kids doing all the same things that the other kids are doing. Because I've gone into classrooms with my students before and like they're either playing with Barbies or they're on the Chromebook or just they aren't involved as much. And so I really feel like that getting that inclusion piece where they're participating, even if they aren't gathering at all, because their grades a lot of times are coming from the intervention specialist, but it doesn't mean that they can't be learning the skills and participating the best that they can in the classroom. And that's something that has just been like heavy on my heart for the last couple of years that I feel gen ed teachers need to be aware of and talk to the intervention specialist on how to make it work, because we want to
Yeah, I was gonna
help and
say-
we want to be involved. Like we're teachers too. Like we can help you. So
That's what I was gonna ask. Do you think it's like a staffing issue sometimes, or it's just like
I think a lot of
difficult
times, and it's not necessarily this at my school, but I think that a lot of times like teachers have the mindset of, well, this is how I've always done it.
Mhm.
Where having that mindset just doesn't allow for the growth or the change, because there is a changing dynamic to students these days. It's not what it used to be.
No, and it's like we've been doing the same thing for the last 50 years. Like it's probably time to like change it up a little bit.
Yes, I'm all
Honestly.
about trying something new and changing it up. And it's like, oh, there's this, like, let's try that out. Or, oh, we can do this. Let's try it. Like, I love, because otherwise it just gets stagnant.
I was just gonna say, I feel like, I know you mentioned like more kids with autism, but I feel like it's even broader than that. I feel like there's more kids with ADHD, there's more
Yes.
kids with just like learning issues in general, attention issues in general. So it's like, I feel like the typical model that has always been used, I mean, I know it's changing a little bit over the past 2 years, but like, you know, just to sit in your seat and, kind of pay attention and, follow along. I don't think it works probably for like 50% of the kids. So I feel like, it might be time to like readjust what the expectations are of
Yes,
educators to children, especially younger children.
I was gonna say that same
absolutely.
thing, Kimmy, because like with the autism, even just autism rates going up and the ADHD rates going up, it's very likely you're going to have an autistic child in your classroom and you're going to have a couple kids with ADHD or neurodiversity in your classroom. So it really is time to change. And I know some people are fighting that all teachers get some sort of autism training because those rates are going up. But I was going to say too, we come across that a lot with Jesse. His gen ed teacher last year, he went in for math and literacy, and she was pretty good about trying to include him, and she was great. But we've come across a lot where it's like the teachers have on their mind, they're like, okay, Billy and Jessica, I need to get their grades in for, so I need to make sure I do the testing with them and blah, blah. And our kids don't need that from the gen ed teacher because like you said, they're getting it from you or they're getting it from the special education teacher. And so because they're not that concerned, they kind of just get pushed off to the side. And I don't think it's always even a conscious thing, but it's like, again, that's what inclusion is. It's like thinking outside
Yes.
of yourself and what's going on.
Yeah.
And what I like what Jesse's teacher this year, like she included other kids and like helping him and assisting him. And that's not only building Jesse up and helping him have skills, it's helping those kids learn things too.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with everything that you just said. I spot on. That is what happens.
I think that's not really the rates. I mean, more kids are getting formally diagnosed, but I think in the past, system wasn't working either because kids were just not graduating. They were getting lost in a system. They weren't getting supports that they
Well,
needed
yeah, because
and
we've been doing
dropping out
this
of
since
school.
like the 50s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or whatever. I don't really know, but yeah, since we've been
Well,
kids,
and
and
it's simple
evolved a
things
little
too.
bit.
It's like with Nixon's, and I don't have this at any fault to his teachers or anything, but they changed his supports, and then they were seeing increased issues in the classroom because of that. And I was like, well, did you talk to him about the change in support? And they said no. And I was like, okay, well, that's like you going to work and having different coworkers and not knowing your schedule or where you're supposed to be, and then expecting that it's going to go smoothly. It's like he knows his day, he knows his routine, he knows where he's supposed to be, he follows the program. Even simple things like talking to our kids as if you would another student. If they're not going to gym, you would tell a neurotypical kid what's happening in their day. You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you do that for my kid as well? It's very simple things that can be implemented, I think, pretty easily most of the time to be more inclusive and not as an outside thought.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. And yeah, to rock a kid's schedule like that, that's
And
huge.
they didn't tell us about it either. And I was like, well, I could have talked to him about the changes that were happening before they happened so we can prepare him for what's coming. If you're going to change his supports, like give us a heads up. We're here to help you out as well in the classroom. Like, I don't know what's happening over there most of the time unless someone gives me a heads up about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like the communication definitely needs to be a big piece of it. And that's like one of the best ways that you can help your child at home too. I feel like if they have that relationship, if the parent has the relationship with the teacher, the child sees that relationship. And then they work together, they trust one another. And it's just so much better. It kind of builds a community vibe versus a us them homework and
Contentious
yeah.
environment.
I do feel like since the pandemic, it's a little trickier because there's like a lot more separation between parents and teachers, with like, some schools don't even let parents inside again, or it's like very, very little of it. So I feel like that's definitely like, and I feel like the schools kind of like that because it's probably easier for them, honestly, just to not have to like have that layer of stuff to contend with. But, it does, I feel like, make everything miscommunications and stuff like that a lot heightened.
Yeah. And I'm one of the crazy teachers, and I know so many teachers will not do this, but I give my phone number to the parents that I work with because I feel like one, it's easy. Parents like to text. Parents would rather text than send an email or make a phone call.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, my child didn't sleep well last night, or hey, my child
Yep.
isn't feeling well today, or they woke up grumpy, or they didn't eat their breakfast, or any number of things. It's just easier to send a quick text. And then I'll text them too of like, oh, don't forget we're doing this tomorrow, or oh, look at this fun activity we did, and send pictures. And then when I get pictures back from parents, I'm like, yes, I know I've hit home then. I'm like, they're sharing their world with me, and then it really feels good.
Well, it's still like I mean, I don't know if this is the millennial in me, but like an email just seems so like, for one, I don't want to add to someone's inbox. I don't want to like, it just seems like, okay, I'm not going to email you like, hey, my kid didn't sleep, like one sentence. I feel like an email needs to be more. So we have actually Jesse's teacher doesn't use this, but my other kids' teachers, my daughter and my nephews, their teachers use talk to text or whatever. It's like an app. And so you can, and I love that so much because it's just like simple, here's a reminder, or this happened, instead of like, okay, I'm going to add a 50th email to your inbox. Like, I think that's awesome.
We had like a portal or something for Nixon. It was awesome. And it pretty much is like texting. Like you can just send a message. It goes in there immediately. If something happened in the classroom, and Nixon's teacher is fantastic with that. She'd be like, hey, this happened today in the classroom. Just wanted to give you a heads up what's happening or whatever. Then we could, I mean, I loved it. Why wouldn't you have that? We're in
Well,
an
I was
age
gonna
of
say,
technology, people.
Also for the teacher, and let's say Nixon didn't sleep all night and he was having a hard morning, your teacher needs to know that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that communication level. So if his behaviors are off or he's tired or whatever it might be, at least they know kind of what's up.
Yes. Or the out of meds. That's a good one to know too.
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah. I mean, the person who knows the most about my son and our new med that we're trying and all this stuff is his teacher, because like she sees him like I need the information from her and she needs it from me as well, because I need to know how it's affecting him at school. It might be different. Like, I don't know. I just love having that open communication. But what advice can you give parents who don't have teachers that are as open and as communicative as you? Like or kids who can't receive services when their parents think they need those interventions, what can they do at home?
So some of the things that you can do is one, talk to the gen ed teacher, because most things that go home are going to be on grade level. So if you see that your child is struggling with those things, start with the gen ed teacher. And I don't know how it is in everyone's state or providence. But we have what is it? Province. Okay.
Yeah.
Close but far.
Providence is in Rhode Island.
It's a TV show, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, clearly I'm not from Canada. So anyways, in Ohio, I know at least, we have something called Title I funding. And with that funding, there's extra supports in reading. And a lot of times they can support math, but usually it focuses on reading. And requesting an IAT meeting, which is an intervention assistant team. Sometimes it's called an RTI team, which is a response to intervention. And it's usually like the principal, the guidance counselor, the gen ed teacher, maybe a title teacher, an intervention specialist. Sometimes the parent is there, and sometimes they have them without the parent. And then at the second one, they'll have the parent join as well. And they just really gather data for a period of weeks, and they see if they're making any gains or not. And then if they aren't making gains and they aren't closing that gap, then they can do a formal request for an evaluation. So I feel like it's just important to like just be aware of what is coming home. Is your child able to do it? Are they doing well? Do they have anxiety about school? And that's another one. I feel like kids have so much anxiety revolving around school as well.
And I think it's so important for the parents to say something, because there's so many kids in classrooms now and not enough teachers, and they don't always catch that. And sometimes our kids are acting out because they don't know what's going on. And so they're just, the teachers, it's easier for them to be like, oh, they're just not paying attention when it's something more.
Yes. And it usually is A lot of times it is something more.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of times, I was gonna say this earlier, where there's like also these groupings of children who like, maybe you have ADHD, but you don't necessarily score low enough on the testing, so you don't qualify for an IEP, but like that doesn't mean that that child doesn't need supports in the classroom, or maybe somebody who doesn't have a diagnosis or like whatever it may be. I feel like there's always these kids that kind of like skirt that line, and those kids just get, they fall through the cracks.
They do, and it's a shame. I know that Ohio is getting ready to pass a dyslexia bill. And so they're going to be screening all students for dyslexia. And if they're flagged, then they're going to have to receive interventions, which I'm excited about because I did the training for it. So I'm like so ready to go tackle some dyslexia this year.
I love that.
We just had a bunch of parents go to the school board here because the school wouldn't even include dyslexia in IEPs. Like they
Which-
wouldn't include the language, they wouldn't include any supports for dyslexia.
I wasn't ever diagnosed like educationally because they couldn't really say like you just have a reading disability. I was just told that over until like middle school teacher said that, and I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's just surprising to me that we're still there. We're still there. That's like a fight to get. Like that's a foundation of learning.
Yeah, and dyslexia really is a very like there's a specific need to treat dyslexia. It's separate. I mean, same as there is for autism with, I don't know, if you go the ABA route, fine. If you go other routes, fine. I mean, there are specific treatments for different things and it needs to be addressed.
Well, my daughter was actually diagnosed with dyslexia when she was diagnosed with ADHD, and the school like denied it. They're like, no, she doesn't have that. And I'm like, well, like the psychologist said that she did. And they're like, well, we're gonna have our reading specialist work with her. And they're like, no, she doesn't. And I didn't know at that time that I could like fight it. Do you know what I mean? I just kind of was like, well, okay, I guess she doesn't have it. I don't.
Yeah, that's so frustrating. And I feel like that happens so much. So I'm really excited about the bill that's being passed here that will hopefully get students the help that they need.
Well, and Elissa, can you talk about that too? Because I mean, I don't know how if you're like an expert on dyslexia, but there's different types of dyslexia. And so, I mean, and a lot of people on the spectrum have it, and sometimes that gets pushed to the side because they're treating the autism first or whatnot. But can you talk about like different types? Because what Kim was just talking about, I think some people think dyslexia is one certain thing, and it's not just that, it's several things.
It is. And a big piece of it is comprehension. A lot of people are like, oh, well, they don't reverse their letters, they aren't dyslexic. And it's like, well, that really isn't what dyslexia is. Yeah, there may be letter reversals, but that's not all that it is. Super complex in that it's pulling all of those different pieces of the reading process, like understanding. A lot of it is comprehension, honestly. I'm losing my train of thought here, but yes, it's a lot of it is like the comprehension piece and understanding what you're reading and the fluency piece to it and being able to fluently read, because if you don't have the fluency, then you're focusing on the decoding. And if you're decoding, then you're clearly not going to have the fluency, and then you're not going to have the comprehension, and it just all builds on each other.
And I think that was like my daughter's issue, because I was like, well, she doesn't like write her name backwards or anything like that's. And obviously, like you said, a lot of people don't know that. Like a regular person's, that's what everyone thinks of dyslexia, of like writing everything backwards. And so like she was in third grade. So like we had never seen that. So like when the school was like, no, she doesn't. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know. Like this is just what the psychologist said, but her decoding skills and all those scores are low for her. So it's like the
decoding and encoding, writing was honestly even harder for me than reading. And I would always shortchange myself. Like when I was younger and I would want to write something, I'd have these great ideas on how I wanted to write it, but then I couldn't figure out how to spell it. So then I would just change it to something like more simplistic versus having it be elaborate and giving detail. I would just dumb it down just so I could spell it with words that I already knew.
Well, the teachers would be like, well, her reading is on grade level. And I'm like, okay, but like the time between one thing to the next was so long, but like her reading wasn't necessarily like, they're like, oh, she's not the lowest in the class. It's like, okay, but how long has she been at the reading level she's at now? A year. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's so hard when you don't have, and then it's not the teachers, like the teachers are like, we're acting like she's on an IEP, but it's like,
But it's like, even then at that point, they should know that something's up. Like if those.
well,
revisions
yeah, well,
happening
the
or not.
teachers, I feel like the teachers do know, but sometimes it's like, they won't go against, you get them in the meeting in front of the administration, and they're not saying the things that like they were saying to you, like in the classroom privately, they're kind of like, I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes their hands are tied to like
Yeah.
that.
And the best thing for addressing dyslexia is just like small group direct instruction and just explicitly teaching each skill one by one and building them and allowing them to practice with those skills. And
it's hard, like what's the dyslexia, what's the ADHD? Do you know what I mean? Like it's hard to
oh,
figure out.
I
Like,
swear dyslexia and ADHD is like autism and anxiety. Like they're
Yeah.
just they go together.
Well, it's to like, and like you're talking about, like I had a lot of trouble with like phonics and stuff like that. So I learned by memorizing a lot, which is now like a strategy. That's how a strategy they tried on Jesse. But I was like told not to do that. Basically, they're like, no, you need to sound out the words. You need to sound out the words. And still to this day, I like look back on a lot of words and I just know it because I memorized the words or, and then the comprehension piece. But for some people, there's a type of dyslexia that's mainly just around numbers. It's not even around reading and writing.
I'm not as knowledgeable on that, but yes. And I used to memorize too, or I would come up with like funky mnemonic devices to remember things. And it's really not how you should do it. You should learn the phonics skills, but I don't know what happened to phonics. Like it just like disappeared for a long time, but they're bringing it back.
They took it out. Yeah,
But
They
hard
did.
not
It was
everyone.
our generation. Me
it
and
went out with
Rachel's.
the bell bottoms.
It really
Yeah,
did.
it
80s. It was the 80s. It came out.
I was just gonna say, like figuring out how your kid learns first and then
Yes.
building up, because I learned memorizing and then I was able to go to phonics that way from that. And that's what they do at Jesse's school. They try to figure out, okay, how do they learn? And I think
Mhm.
that's the thing, because they just want
Most
to teach the
important.
mass. And it's
Yeah. Well, and
why-
that's what I was going to say is like, what you were saying, Alyssa, is that you probably should learn phonics, but who cares if you make it to the end in the right way? You know what I mean? Like if you learn by memorizing or by like these mnemonic devices or by writing things out or pictures, who cares how you get to the end if you're all in the same spot at the end doing the same thing? You know what I mean? It shouldn't be like you have to be in this bracket learning this exact way as this person next to you, because our brains don't function that way. There's people who are hands-on, there's people who's auditory, there's people who are visual, like all different kinds of ways that brains work, and we shouldn't try and cram everybody into one set of tracks.
Well, and it's always
roads.
changing. Like,
Yeah.
before they thought you would hit a wall if you did that, and then you would
Yeah.
be able to like learn more complicated and advanced things. Like I remember when my son was younger, they'd be like, you got to learn your times table. He never learned his time. He is 30 years old. He's never learned his timetables. He adds the math in his head. He always has done it. But he could do 8 + 8 is 16 time, 16 + 16 is 32 faster than you could do 8 × 4 is 32. Now they're like, oh no, we're not going to just memorize timetables. Now we really want you to understand that like what 8 × 4 means. So now they have to do all this like
Well,
craziness.
they
But it's
changed
like,
math. We
but
can't
it's
even
like,
teach our
this
kids
is
math
like-
because it's not
no, I can't do
same
that. Thank God I have my son. Thank God I had a good a son who's good at math, and he was born first. So he's been able to help the younger kids. So I'm like, don't come at me with that stuff unless it's like you want me to figure out how much money you're gonna save on something. That's about the only math I can do.
But that's
Moms
why I think
can all
25%
do-
off. I can figure that
Moms
out.
can all do 30% off.
25%.
Yeah,
But that's why I think, like, Alyssa, you're so important in intervention specialists, because when it comes down to it, it's that kids need smaller group sizes. They need that attention from people that can really recognize what they need. And that's just something like in this country that we don't take priority in. It's like, you can't get with it, then you're out. And so that's why I think it's really cool you do what you do.
Well, thank
Yes.
you. I appreciate that. And then like another thing that I feel like parents can do at home with kids is to just give them a break. I feel like it's And I've fallen into the category. I won't say I haven't. It's like read 20 minutes a night, practice your spelling words, do your math page, and all the things. It's like, holy cow, when you really start thinking about everything that our kids do, OT, speech, PT, adaptive ed if they do that, ABA, they're with the gen ed teacher, they're with the intervention specialist, not to mention all of like the overwhelming stimulants throughout the day, the peer interactions, and the bathrooms. Like when you put it all together, it is just a lot. And so I feel like a lot of times kids who have IEPs, like by the time they get home, they need to take a break.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yes.
Like homework was such a battle with my
Great.
daughter because she'd cry and cry. And then, and she takes so long to do stuff. So it's like, well, she's up to midnight now because she's got to read her stuff 4 times because she doesn't retain the information. So now she's got to go back and read it again and go back and find the answer to the question because she is not retaining the information.
And she's sobbing and she's so stressed and you can't compute and you can't, like, it all just perpetuates itself, snowball.
You
I
hate
feel like
school.
that from what I've seen, it seems like they're scaling back a little on homework now, which I think is
Primo.
needed.
Yes.
So they just took away here grades. I don't know if you do that there. There's no more grades here, except when you get to grade
in your old
12.
Providence?
No, sorry, grades. They don't mark you. Mark. We call it like grades. Like, oh, I got a grade, like your report card. They don't.
No grades.
Yeah, we call that grades. Here
Grades,
too. That's
yeah. Okay, so-
continent-wide.
You
Yeah,
grew up
I
here,
don't know.
then.
It's the same.
I don't know what's happening right now.
You don't know what
Until you get into grade 12 and then they go back to grading you again, which is so weird to me. They just changed
wild.
it
But your
this year.
last year,
That's
Yeah,
wild.
last year, yeah.
Man,
So
I
how do
would've
they
loved
measure?
some
By
school
testing?
there.
I don't know. We're gonna see.
I don't know.
Maybe back in-
3 rain clouds and 2 sunny smiley faces,
Gold
and
star.
you're ready for 7th grade.
Gold star.
And a gold star.
Thumbs up.
Yeah,
You
we're
made it.
coming. Yeah. All right.
That's an awesome grading system. Thumbs up. Thumbs up.
yeah, exactly. Alyssa, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yes. Well, I'm really only in one place in a small town in Ohio.
Next to the
Give
butcher.
give everyone your address.
What's your
Send
phone number
everyone over
so
to
we
custom
can text
killing.
you photos
Oh my
of your
God.
success?
Can I get that cow?
No, my husband was there the other day, and no joke, he was so bummed he didn't have his phone because he saw the head of a buck and just like hooves like hanging out of the dumpster. I was just like, oh my gosh, how did you not have a camera for that?
I'm such an office nerd. All I can think of is an episode where Dwight talks about he's going to start selling cows, but keeping them alive and just slicing pieces. Of them up. I don't know why it's coming to my mind. Anyway, I watch too much Office.
Sorry, I digress. No, I am on Facebook at Life with Lexi, and that's where I have my little platform. I'm really not. I've posted a couple of things on Instagram, but to be honest, I don't really get on it. I'm just not hip, I guess.
I do
Same
have
here.
to say
Same
that you
girl, same.
ladies were my favorite group of ladies that I met in Minnesota, hands down.
No one can cut a rug like
I
Elissa.
see. Yeah.
Our Ohio friends.
I mean, I loved meeting everybody, but the group of you together, that energy was fierce. The
Oh,
whole-
was next
I
level,
love,
yeah.
I
So much.
love my friends. I am
It's so
so,
great.
I am excited. Molly's actually coming to Ohio
Yay!
next week from A Winter Story. And so we'll get to, Nikki and I are going to go see her, but Sarah's vacating.
Well, that's really a shame because I just can't imagine you and Molly having any fun at all. So that's really going to be.
I'll keep my ringer on.
Trying to get Amanda to join us, but she's busy. She said that she's teaching Monday through Wednesday, so she can't come.
She's the busiest person in the world.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, isn't she though?
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
but I'm excited. We had so much fun with you. I was actually messaging them today because I was like, oh, I want to post a picture of us and put something on Facebook about getting to talk with you guys. And I was like, we didn't get a single picture with all of you at the same time. How did
Oh,
that
yes,
happen?
we did, didn't we?
We might have one
Not
in
on
there.
our phones. I made them check their phones.
I think I have one. I'll send it
don't
to you
think
if
I
I
have.
do.
I do
It-
have an amazing video of you guys dancing in the glow of our gear as the
Oh.
sun was shining through the window. All of
Oh,
our
yeah.
glitter outfits. As the
Oh, I
disco
loved the
ball.
glitter outfits.
Yeah, I
There
do have an
needed to be a
amazing
little bit more outfit to my outfit. after I've seen those dancing videos. Sweet baby Jesus.
Oh, you were
Um,
rocking it.
Oh, there was a lot moving.
Thank you
Oh,
for
my
all that
goodness.
you do for our kids,
Yes.
but
Yes.
also just your amazing spirit.
Yes.
I
Well,
love it.
thank
For coming
you.
on.
I'm so glad that I got to come on. Thank you for inviting me on. I really
Yes,
truly
we're so
appreciate
happy
it.
to have you. It was so fun.
It was fun, and I will hopefully get to see all of you again sometime
Yes.
within the near
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Oh,
Thank
I don't know if
you.
I
See you
can't.
soon.
There's nothing.
Yes, see
Good
you
night,
guys
everyone.
later.
Have a good
Goodbye.
Thank you so much for
night.
coming on. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us at the table for this episode of the Table for Five No Reservations podcast. Big thank you to all of our supporters. If you would like to become a supporter, please check out the description of this episode, where you will also find episode information, how to sign up for our newsletter, and find links to us individually. Join us next Monday for more, and while you wait, check out our content on Facebook and Instagram. If you are enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you listen. To contact us, you can email us at tablefor5podcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next week. Can't wait to sit with you again.